Retro.
Hi, this is Emily Swallow, the armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Hello and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. We're your hosts. I am Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And this episode will feature our discussion of some recent Star Wars news. Before we do that, though, Jay, I want to go ahead and remind everybody where they can find us on social media.
Sure thing, Dennis. We are conveniently found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. Okay,
the dish is aligned, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down, and we're now broadcasting to the galaxy. So, as has been the case since Star Wars Celebration, it's kind of a light news week, but we do have some stories that'll be fun to talk about. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Up first, Mark Hamill is doing the rounds promoting the life of Chuck. And he was recently interviewed or having a conversation with comicbook.com. And he was asked about the possibility of appearing in the new Jedi Order movie. And his response to that was, I am so grateful to George for letting me be a part of that back in the day. He refers to George Lucas the same way I do. The humble days when George called Star Wars the most expensive, low-budget movie ever made. We never expected it to become a permanent franchise and a part of pop culture like that. But my deal is I had my time. I am appreciative of that, but I really think they should focus on the future and all the new characters. And by the way, when I disappeared, I left my robes behind, and there's no way I'm going to appear as a naked Force ghost. So
sounds like Mark Hamill.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't take himself super seriously, and he's willing to joke around and stuff like that. But so what do you think, Jay? I mean, would you be disappointed not to see any more of him in, the next episode of the Star Wars saga? But do you think he should come back, or what's your take?
I mean, honestly, I think he's got a good point. I mean, there was a place and a time for his return. And, even though we've seen his return, quote unquote, as, deep faked in, The Mandalorian and whatnot, I think that he's on the right track. I mean, there are so many other Star Wars tales to tell. And, sometimes I think that overuse of certain characters can end up being a little bit more like fan service or overkill. And as much as we all love Luke Skywalker, it is, I mean, he makes a good point. And if he's okay with moving on and saying that, you know what, I've done my time, this is my legacy, I'm ready to move on, then I can completely respect that.
Yeah, I can too. On the one hand, the way that they're talking about this new Jedi Order movie is that it's 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, and Rey is kind of struggling to rebuild the Jedi Order. Well, can you just not see the scene where she has the crisis of faith, and then the Force ghost Luke Skywalker shows up to give her the pep talk? I mean, that's what happened in The Last Jedi with Yoda, right? He showed up to give the pep talk to Luke. And if Alec Guinness had been alive, maybe it would have been Obi-Wan in that regard. Kind of surprised they didn't actually just try to do a digital version of Alec Guinness for that, kind of the way they did fake the Tarkin for Rogue One. But that being said, it's kind of a trope. So it makes sense and not to do that, to do something original with that movie. And I don't want to get off the diatribe again, but is this movie even happening? So, I mean,
Right.
there's so many things to say about that. Simon Kinberg is writing a movie that potentially is going to star Rey and other Star Wars veterans when it comes down to it. And, there's no word about whether the recent version of that script is being completed. And so there's that. And I don't begrudge him. I mean, he's doing other things, and he
Mhm.
seems to be happy doing other things. So yeah, go do those other things. I get that. It's a role that's kind of defined him, and we'll get into that as another story here in just a second. But why not? If Star Wars is going to survive for the long term, then yeah, they probably do need to pass the torch
Yes.
once and for all. And they've kind of done that with,
Mhm.
Pedro Pascal et al. In the Mandalorian, and Rosario Dawson with Ahsoka, and Andor was a big success. So yeah, you get into those other stories.
Yep. No, I agree 100%. I mean, there does come a time where also just as a person in general, you have to say, "Okay, you know what? I'm good with this, and, whatever happens from here is out of my hands."
Yeah. I will correct him on one thing though. I mean, he's already shown up as a Force ghost and he wasn't naked then. I mean, we saw him in The Rise of Skywalker. He, he did show up on Ashto when Rey was throwing rocks into the burning wreckage of Kylo Ren's TIE fighter. And, it's like,
Good
what are you
point.
doing?
Good
A
point.
Jedi's weapon deserves more respect, and he had his robes on then. So, I mean, Alec Guinness disappeared when he got cut down by Vader and left his robe behind, but then he sure was wearing robes as a Force ghost later when he talked to Luke. So, I mean, I get it. He
Oh,
was an off the cuff remark that he was doing as a joke,
right.
but still, it did just kind of the nerd in me just had to correct that. So there we are.
As you should.
Yeah, the other side of this is just the the embracing the role, and he's been telling stories, and this has been picked up on a lot of outlets, so I'm not even sure which one is the original, but he was talking on about how for years he was kind of distancing himself from the role of Luke Skywalker, but then he went to star in a production on Broadway, and Carrie Fisher showed up and noticed that in the playbill, it was listing all of his credits from different things that he had done. And then the final line was he also starred in a trilogy of space movies. And her response to that was like, what's the deal? I mean, I'm Princess Leia, you're Luke Skywalker, get over it, embrace it.
Yes.
And, and from then on, he kind of did that. He re-embraced the culture.
Right, and I think for him too, it was probably a lot of it was just humble coming out, and, and that again, like we just said, that's so Mark, this is so Carrie, just get over yourself, like, just embrace it. I could totally hear her saying that for sure.
Yeah. On the one hand, I can also see a situation. I remember Leonard Nimoy before he passed. He had written a book, well before he passed, called "I Am Not Spock," and then it was autobiographical, and it was kind of him divorcing himself from the role of Spock. And then he wrote a follow-up autobiography called "I Am Spock," and where he kind of re-embraced that. And the point across that was he didn't want to be defined by just the one thing. He is an
Mhm,
actor. He's done other stuff. And it's just, but in Leonard Nimoy's case, Spock was the biggest. Well, in Mark Hamill's case, Luke Skywalker is in fact the biggest. It's what he's known for, and it's given him opportunities that he might not otherwise have had.
mhm,
And so, there's no reason to be embarrassed about that, especially not in today's day and age where geek culture is ascended to a place. It's at an all-time high.
right.
I remember, back in the 90s, people were frequently shy, including me, about this type of stuff because you
Yes.
do this and you become socially shunned, especially in high school and the like. So but it's a
Mhm.
different world right now.
It is, and, it's ironic too that Carrie's always had that joie de vivre and the "I don't care, just do
Yeah.
it because it is what it is" kind of thing, but I can see that, that if he's trying to appease or appeal, I guess you could say, to a specific type of fan base, putting that into a Broadway playbill, like you said, he just didn't want to embrace it at the time, and Carrie is so good at that. She's just so, "Don't worry about it, just do it."
Yeah, but things like so many of his other roles, well, I say that, but I can't name all of them. But like one of the biggest things he's known for is doing the voice of the Joker
Right.
in Batman the
Mhm.
animated series and stuff like that. And the one time I've seen Mark Hamill live, where I was in the room with him, was at Fan Expo Dallas back in 2017, 2018, and it was one of the anniversary years for the Batman animated series, and they were there to to celebrate the series, and he got up there and was doing the Joker voice and talking about everything that he went through to put that voice together when he auditioned for it, then when he got it, trying to remember how to recreate that voice. And it's like, Mark, it's not like Luke Skywalker is the only super geeky role you've ever done.
Right.
You made a career out of the voice acting and stuff like that for those type of characters too. So, but I mean, I get it. It's sometimes you want to be taken seriously in other roles and not be typecast.
Right.
And I'm sure Luke Skywalker could work against that to some degree.
Right. Right.
Well, the last Mark Hamill story out there, and I really love this one. He was again doing the rounds for the Life of Chuck, and he got into a discussion with some interviewer on a red carpet somewhere, and he was lamenting the fact that in the world of fandom, he gets asked for autographs all the time. And he was going on to talk about how he would sign an autograph somewhere, like at a convention or wherever he might be. And by the time he got on a 2-hour flight and got home, whoever got that autograph would be putting it on eBay for like
Oh, yeah.
$500.
Seen this. Mhm.
And so, it's kind of embittered him a little bit about just giving out autographs. So he's
Mhm.
come up with a trick to identify who the real Star Wars fans are,
Yes.
so that when he gets asked for an autograph, he's like, "Well, how about we take a selfie?"
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, Star Wars fans would love to get a selfie, but if the person's like, "No, I really want the autograph," he knows that they're really just looking for a cash grab there.
I
I
saw that.
kind
Uh-huh.
of love that. I mean, I would love to get a
Yeah.
selfie with Mark.
Heck yeah, especially because usually you have to pay extra for that. A
Oh
lot
yeah.
extra.
Yeah, no, so I mean, I was gonna ask you, I was like, if you spotted Mark Hamill and you walked up and asked for an autograph, he said, "How about we do a selfie?" I mean,
I would
is it
totally
even
take the selfie.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, is it even in question? It's just
Exactly.
I mean, I make no bones about it. I don't typically buy the photo ops when I go to cons. I like to have the autographs. I don't sell them. I keep them. I don't even have them all hanging up. But I like having the memento of meeting the actor. And I think sometimes I just don't want the picture of myself when it comes down to it. It's the, and that's just me. Everyone's different on that type of thing. But, getting a cool picture of that actor in a major role, especially when it comes to Star Wars and having their autograph on it, that's just something really cool to have. And
Mhm.
typically, I don't want to rule everything out because there's some actors you can't even meet anymore. And so somehow you get that autograph, then you get that autograph. But it's just really cool. It's like, I met that person, they signed this, it's now hanging on my wall. So that's cool. But if he doesn't want to do it, then yeah, I'll take that selfie and I'll put it all over social media and text it to everybody I know. So
Heck yeah.
yeah.
Now, see, I'm a little bit of both. And
Yeah.
it's funny because, of course, I have 2 photo ops with Hayden Christensen, but I don't have his autograph yet. But yet there's others that I would rather have an autograph from instead of a photo. So, I guess it's just for me, it's kind of whatever at the time is
But
on the
Jay,
brain
you
pan.
you cosplay Ahsoka, and how awesome is it to be dressed up as Ahsoka and meeting Hayden Christensen? I mean, that's just
Really awesome.
to be Anakin himself. I mean, that makes complete sense. I could totally see why you do. And I suspect he's going to show up at a lot more cons. You could take that picture later and get him to autograph it at some point if you wanted to. I
Yes.
mean, you've
Yes.
got
That's the plan.
opportunities.
Yes.
So yeah, there's no one right answer to all
Oh,
that,
sure.
but it's just, we all have our preferences of collecting, but I'm also, I'm going to be shy. If I saw Mark Hamill out and about, I would be shy about going to approach him in the first place. But,
Right.
if the conversation did come up, I would take that selfie any day, no problem. So
Right, right, same, same.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on. We of course know that the Mandalorian Grogu is coming out May of next year. And of course, if you've ever appeared in Star Wars, then you're going to be asked about Star Wars no matter what you're promoting. And in the case of Ming Na Wen, she is in the next Karate Kid movie, which is called Karate Kid Legends. And so she's been doing the junket for that. In an interview with Screen Rant, she was asked about whether she might appear in The Mandalorian and Grogu. And her response was, well, the question was, we all miss Fennec Shan. It's been a minute since we've seen her. Mando and Grogu are a big screen next year, maybe. And her response was, well, I mean, I'm not in it, but if I can be, that would be great. And then the follow up question was, do you think we'll see her again? And Ming-Na Wen's response was, "I hope we see Fennec again. Yes, because I miss her too." And I got me thinking, is like, we have to see her in whatever movie that is that Dave Filoni's doing, right? I mean, where it's kind of like the Avengers version of Star Wars, where you know all of these Disney Plus series stars come together to for whatever galactic battle is going to happen. I mean, I certainly hope she appears in that.
Oh, yeah. I hope she does too, for sure.
Yeah, and if not, I could, even if you don't want to bring back Tamara Morrison to do Book of Boba Fett, I feel like you could do a live action Fennec Shan series on Disney Plus easy and make it
Mhm,
compelling.
mhm. Well, I know Tim wants to come back to do Boba Fett because he's even talked about the fact that he feels like, and not to go out on a tangent that's separate from Ming-Na Wen, but he said that he feels like he could have upped his game a little bit more as Boba
Mhm.
Fett. So I know he wants to come back. And, and I know Ming-Na Wen would be all over that as well. So, I mean, this time around, it just wasn't part of the story that Jon Favreau wanted to tell, and I guess that's a bummer, but it is what it is at this point.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, hey, if that means we get Tamara Morrison back as Boba Fett, then I'm all for that too.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's amazing, and I know. To put it bluntly, if you're going to take 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, in my book, the Book of Boba Fett is no, at best, third amongst those
Sure.
four. But
Mhm.
that's still not bad when it comes down to me.
No.
Boba Fett riding a Rancor. I mean, come on,
Oh, it's so great.
that was absolutely incredible. I would gladly see more of them, and those two were so good together. They had a lot of chemistry. I'd love to see them off on a mission together. I mean, get them off Tatooine. They don't have to necessarily be protecting Mos Espa. Again, they can go on some sort of a mission elsewhere, and that would be incredible. I mean, if you can get Obi-Wan Kenobi off of Tatooine for the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series, then you
Yep.
can get Boba Fett and Fennec Shand off that planet and send them on a mission as well for the greater good of Mos Espa. Clever Rider could come with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Be all over that.
okay. Well, put us both down then for interested in a Fennec Shand series or Book of Boba Fett season 2.
Yes, please.
Last thing we have in this evening's news is that Ryan Reynolds has pitched an R-rated Star Wars movie to Lucasfilm. And this came up on an episode of the Box Office podcast. And he is quoted as saying, "I pitched to Disney. I said, why don't we do an R-rated Star Wars property? It doesn't have to be over A plus characters. There's a wide range of characters you could use. And I don't mean R-rated to be vulgar. R-rated as a Trojan horse for emotion. I always wonder why studios don't want to just gamble on something like that." He goes on to say, "I'm not saying I'd want to be in it. That would be a bad fit. I'd want to produce and write or be a part behind the scenes. Those kinds of IPs exist very well on scarcity and surprise. We don't get scarcity really with Star Wars because of Disney Plus, but you can certainly still surprise people." There is a
Love
lot.
this.
Yeah, there's a lot to react there. What are your
Yeah.
overall thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, Ryan Reynolds is a genius
Yeah.
because I mean, he just has an eye and just that perfect nature for what resonates with people and what resonates with fans. And I can totally see where he's going with this because I mean, really, I mean, Andor was very close to what I would consider to be R-rated television. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? As far as the what we got with the grittiness and the subject matter and even some of the language and the adult nature of some of the themes and whatnot. So, I mean, we're almost there. You know what I mean? It's just like
Sure.
you just got to like step just a little bit further, take what Tony Gilroy did and just take it just one step further. And, everything that he's saying here, as far as, he doesn't want to be in it, he wants to be like behind the scenes. He reminds me a lot of even a modern day Carrie Fisher in that way,
Mm.
in that she was always the script doctor and that she was the one that was behind the scenes saying, why don't we do this? What if this was this way and we made this just a little bit better? And what if we use this dialogue instead of this dialogue? And I could totally see Ryan Reynolds directing something or helping to write it. And I think he's spot on with saying that he doesn't want to be in it because too many people associate him with, of course, Deadpool and so many other things, and not to pigeonhole him into that because, I mean, we're getting Ryan Gosling, obviously, in a Star Wars property, but I think he's spot on with where his perspective is in all of this. But so I saw this and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this," and I just did. But what were your thoughts?
I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, because I saw this days ago when I started putting together the news for this week. And my response to is like, yeah, I want to see Ryan Reynolds in Star Wars. But then he wrote, then I saw that quote, like he doesn't want to be in it. He wants to produce, write, or whatever on the situation. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense because I know he had an awful lot of input on the Deadpool movies, and he was kind of the driving force behind those movies a lot of times. And okay, so that's fine. And then I was trying to think, well, I'm not sure I get what he means when he says, I don't mean R rated to be vulgar, R rated as a Trojan horse for emotion. Okay, I get the not to be vulgar part because look, I mean, Deadpool is vulgar as it can get sometimes.
Mhm, mhm.
But the R rated for emotion, I'm not entirely certain I know what that means. I could see with the level of violence and action that he's talking about, why that might work in Star Wars and stuff. And as you kind of pointed out, Andor walked a line there, and it didn't quite cross that line into R-rated territory, but it pushed PG-13 for all it was worth, with the exception of maybe language. So uh, there's that. I mean, I'm not against seeing him in Star Wars. There's, I guess, a notion that he's kind of typecast, and people might expect a Deadpool type of role, but actors shine when they break out and do something against type. Why couldn't he in this situation? So there's that. And he's not wrong about the scarcity of Star Wars. And that probably has been one of the things that's been holding Star Wars back recently is that they saturate it so much with what's on Disney Plus. And there's been a problem getting Star Wars movies off the ground. But we're getting Mandalorian Grogu. We know Starfighter goes into production this fall. You get a big name like Ryan Gosling behind it. He gets stuff done when he wants to. Why not
Mhm.
him? So I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
true. And
Yeah.
maybe he would show up even, as a masked character that we don't realize is him, you know what I mean?
Or yeah, or a cameo or something like that. I'm not against this idea. I mean, I'm not going to get excited about it until we actually hear something more that,
Sure.
they get up on celebrations and, Star Celebration stage and not only announce the movie, but say it goes into production this fall. That's, when we heard about Starfighter, that's what they were telling us, this fall going into production. Great. That's wonderful. But uh, so, I mean, I'm more intrigued by this, I think, than I am some of the other things that we've heard about that are in development. The Lando movie, that just can't get off the ground. The Rogue Squadron movie that's not getting off the ground. Ryan Johnson stuff, that died on the vine a long time ago. So, I mean, I know Ryan Johnson's talking about, have you got the opportunity to do these movies? He'd be really excited, but uh, Ryan, you're not doing them. We know this. There's just, you don't have room in your schedule. It's not happening. Uh,
Mhm.
so, but uh, but I mean, Ryan Reynolds wants to put something together. Yeah, why not? We've seen Disney take some swings. A different type of Star Wars with the Acolyte, a different type of Star Wars with Skeleton Crew, a different type of Star Wars with Andor season 2. These
Mhm.
last 3 things that they put out there. I mean, Acolyte had a very, very, very mixed reception out there. It had some great elements to it, but other issues that are things that people reacted to not as well. Skeleton Crew may not have broken records for viewership on Disney Plus, but everything I've seen has been very, very, very well received. Different type of Star Wars, okay,
Right.
more of a
Right.
goodies type. And then Andor season 2 blended some classic Star Wars elements with a new type of Star Wars storytelling, and was immensely successful. So yeah, I don't think he's wrong. Push the envelope a little bit more. Couple of other type of Star Wars.
No, I totally agree. And again, as you pointed out, if Andor season 2 is any indication, that's what fans, especially adult Star Wars fans, are really thirsting for, is just
Mhm.
that depth of complexity and intensity. something really tied into, realistic depictions of emotion and just something that is relatable. And, and yeah, laser swords and Jedi mind tricks are always fun, but, if this is something that resonates, then why the heck not? Go for it, Ryan. Let's do this
Yes. The one
thing.
thing about, I mean, as much as I've been talking about how much I'm interested I would be, does Star Wars lose something when it's not all ages? I mean, if it's R-rated, you're not in, and that's the movie that's coming out, you can't take your niece, your old niece to it. You know what I'm saying? It's the,
Right.
and that's always been kind of the appeal, is, the wonderment of the kids that go to get
Mhm.
to see a Star Wars movie for the first time. Do we lose that, and what does that mean? Is it a big deal? I mean, thinking about it, I mean, Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One may not have been ideal for Star Wars movies for people, but it's, you can't say that the franchise is necessarily worse off for having them,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they weren't rated R. I mean, those were PG-13. You go rated R, that means something.
Right, right, and that's something that George Lucas always wanted to stay away from
Mhm,
because he as you mentioned, he did want it to be for the family, he wanted it to be something that kids could also enjoy,
mhm,
but, again, as you pointed out, I mean, even Revenge of the Sith being PG-13, there are some very adult things going on there and very graphic things as well, so, I guess you could make the argument either way, and Star Wars is one of those things I feel like that has evolved. It's unique in the aspect that I think the only other franchise that even compares even closely would be the MCU, and that
mhm,
there's such a diverse ability to be able to consume it in different ways that there truly is something for every age group. I mean, you look at the what is it, the Young Jedi Adventures series, the cartoon series on Disney Plus, and then,
mhm,
so you've got things that are specifically oriented to the littles, and then you've got the things that are, more general audience types of things like The Mandalorian and Grogu and whatnot. And then you do have things like Andor that are definitely specifically for the adult. And even in other types of Star Wars, you've got different media, different books, different comics and whatnot, and that there truly is something for everyone. So I don't think that necessarily you have to appease to all age groups with one specific work because Star Wars is it's so huge that you're not going to, limit yourself with saying, "Oh, if we put this out, we're going to limit people," because there's
mhm.
still so much to choose from.
Yeah, I hear that. I guess if I'm an executive at Disney or Lucasfilm and I'm being pitched this R-rated and it's like, okay, Ryan, we do this and we've automatically like lost one third of our potential audience for this thing.
Mhm.
Star Wars movies should have the potential to be $1 billion movies. There's not a lot of R-rated movies that approach that,
Mhm.
and
That's
so
fair.
we're handicapping it from the get go. Um, yeah, I'm just talking this out. I mean, again, it's that I'm not sure where I come down on this idea just yet. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, Deadpool can get away with being an R-rated movie because when he comes out, he's not an A-list character when that movie comes out. He's elevated to A-list based on that movie, but Star Wars is an A-list property already, and suddenly a movie comes out and you've already prohibited a huge chunk of your audience. So, anyways, yeah, just again, I think there's a balancing act that needs to go on there, and I'm just seeing what comes out. And then, I don't think he's the first person. I'm trying to remember who else proposed an R-rated movie some time ago, but never got off the. Oh, it was Rebel Moon was originally supposed to be a Star Wars movie, but it was R,
Right.
which is
Mhm.
why it got spun off into something else. So I guess we kind of know where Lucasfilm's head is on that. So at any rate, but he's also not Ryan Reynolds. So we'll see.
Good
Yeah,
point.
who's got a lot of cachet these days. All right. Well, then I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. That'll do it for this week's Star Wars News. Star Wars News. Thank you all for joining us for it. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion. If you want to get well, it's not been weekly lately because there hasn't been that much, but it's mostly weekly when we talk about the news. And if you want to get all of our future discussions, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. We're pretty much found everywhere. We'd appreciate it if you could go ahead and give us a 5-star review and review wherever you listen, and if your podcatcher supports such a thing. And if you want to catch more shows than from our back catalog beyond what you're going to find in our podcatcher, head over to rushzapp.com, where you can find all previous 895 episodes. We've been around for a while. We got a lot of in the back catalog. Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are and where else we can be found online?
Absolutely. So if you'd like to get in touch with us online, the easiest way to do that is on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And we do have some Pinterest boards that we maintain for ideas for everything Star Wars. And then we also have our two YouTube outlets. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music, where you can find all of our shows. You can subscribe and also leave us some comments. So if you'd like to let us know what you thought of this episode of the news or any others, you can head over to both of those. And we also have a TeePublic store, so you can pick up one of 7 different show logo designs that are available on all kinds of things, from home goods and t-shirts and sweatshirts, tank tops, and all kinds of fun items in between. So the link for that will be in our show notes. And if you do pick something up, every one of those purchases does help to support the show, and we sure do appreciate it. So thanks in advance.
Okay. What's going on in cosplay?
Well, right now, kind of quiet actually, but you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And so you can check out my cosplays as Ahsoka, as we were just talking about with Hayden Christensen, the fourth sister, 2 different versions of Hera, as well as my original concept Mandalorian, which I'm doing a little bit of upgrade work on this summer, and lots of other things as well. So check that out for any updates on appearances and also my stories for other cosplayers and content creators, small business owners, and the like. Once again, at j.snips cosplay.
All right. Coming up on the show on Monday, we are reviewing the 3rd and final episode of season 2 of Light and Magic. That's going to be fun. And then on Wednesday, it is our long-awaited discussion of Reign of Empire, Mask of Fear. The novel came out in, I think it was February, from Alexander Freed. So I'm looking forward to that one. And I hope you'll all join us for us. But with that, thanks for listening to episode 896 of Podcast Stars, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with you.